What's going on, guys? So we're getting into the full story of Predator Kills the Marvel Universe. This story is the continuation of the other Marvel Predator series that we covered, starting with Predator vs. Wolverine, Predator vs. Black Panther, as well as Predator vs. Spider-Man. And I have those links in the description for anyone who needs more of the backstory that builds up to this. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so jumping in, the first thing we do is pick up with the Guardians of the Galaxy as they're receiving a distress signal. And at first, Peter Quill's asleep, so Rocket has to wake him up, only for Peter to be like, I was having the most incredible dream. You were a chipmunk, Rocket, a little itty bitty chipmunk, and I'd carry you around in my pocket. And I'm gonna just tell you right now, if I woke up my homeboy and he told me he was having an incredible dream, only for him to go on and describe it with the first word of his description being you, I would have just stopped him right there. It would have been like, you? Nope, don't want to know. But Rocket goes on to tell Peter that they're being pinged by an emergency beacon with a registration that belongs to Stark Industries mining ship. So Peter hails them while identifying himself as Peter Quill of the Milano, and the response is real staticky, but they say help, hardware malfunction, adrift. So Peter's like, roger that, help is on the way. So they request to dock and permission is granted. But as they dock and get ready to board, for a moment Rocket is like, part of me wants to let that smarmy billionaire Stark take care of his own mess. And Peter tells him, we're not rescuing the smarmy billionaire, Rocket. We're rescuing the gearheads and diggers who do all the dirty work for him. And as they get ready to board, Groot, Gamora, and Drax, they're all basically like, okay, so what do we got? What are we getting into? And Drax is like, you need me to kill anything? So Peter tells him negative. Everyone can chill. Looks like a mechanical problem. Equivalent of a flat tire. And Drax is like, that's boring and stupid. Like you. But when Peter and Rocket board this ship, it's dark, it's quiet, and it has Peter saying that he probably should have introduced himself as Star-Lord so they could get a proper hero's welcome. But right off the bat, Rocket, he doesn't like the look of this one bit. And as they continue in just a few steps further, suddenly both Rocket and Peter have these 3 red dots on their chest. And as soon as Rocket sees it, he gets the idea. But there's hardly any time for him to communicate or explain it to Quill before Quill's hit with a concussive plasma blast straight to the chest, pushing his lungs out of the back of his ribcage. But fortunately, because Rocket's faster and smaller, he was able to avoid getting blasted. And it's pretty sad, man. I thought Star-Lord was going to at least get off one legendary in this whole thing, but nope, he's done. But as Rocket is being watched, he is able to grab Peter's blaster, so he lets off some shots and makes a run for it. But back over on the Milano, as soon as the other Guardians hear something coming their way, it is too late, because that sound is followed by a smart disc, an Elder Sword, and other Yautja weapons coming through and cutting these guys to pieces. And I mean, Drax is killed instantly. Groot is just cut in half, and Gamora gets her arm cut off, but even still, it's not looking good for these guys, because when the hunting party boards the Milano, a very familiar member of this party goes on to say, you see, I told you, they blindly answered the call for help. That's what makes them such easy prey. Let the great hunt begin, and let Craven be the spearhead. Because again, all this is continuing from what we saw in the previous Marvel Predator vs. miniseries, with Predator vs. Spider-Man being the most recent, which is where we saw Craven earn his place amongst the Yautja after killing one of the Hunter's most deadly enemies when they went on to brand him as the ultimate killer, and they made him a blooded warrior just before Craven left with them. And now that he's returned, it's been about 1 year since the events of Predator vs. Spider-Man, so Craven has spent quite some time with these guys, and we'll talk more about what that means as this continues. But just after this reveal, we jump over to Virginia, to the Weapons Plus facility, where we find Dr. Cornelius awaiting the arrival of General Charlotte Pett. And now when she gets here, she thanks the doctor for accommodating her request for a visit. But the truth is, since Weapon Plus is heavily government funded, this makes her visit more like a command. And Dr. Cornelius calls that out right away. But the true reason why she's here is because the government's been doing a lot of cuts lately, and Weapons Plus is considered to be next up, with the program consuming over $1 billion each year, and in the past year, Weapons Plus hasn't provided any prototypes. So yeah, General Pett's showing up here like, yeah, you better show me something nice or I'm pulling the plug. So when Dr. Cornelius takes her over to what he's been working on for so long, he tells her again the same thing he told her earlier as well as this past year, which is that he's been terribly busy. And when he does this face scan to open the door, General Pett tells him, I need to know what we're paying for. So he puts forward his hand like you first, and he tells her, then by all means, take a look. So she walks in and she's like, I better be impressed. You're on the chopping block. And once she's inside, as the door starts closing, Dr. Cornelius is like, I'm sorry, did you say it was I who was on the chopping block? And man, after this door shuts and she's locked inside, the doctor tells her, General Pett, meet Predator X. as she turns around and sees the Yautja from the ending of Predator vs. Spider-Man, who we knew was going to make his way to Weapons Plus when Dr. Cornelius showed up. And man, I cannot wait to see this dude in action. But from here, the next thing we do is head over to the dark side of the moon, where we see a very familiar ship making its landing. As we're told, only 1% of planets are potentially habitable. You could say that Earth won the cosmic lottery. But the thing about winning the lottery is, you become a target. Others want what you have. The Yautja want what Earth has. The Predator King, who we first saw in the Predator vs. Black Panther story, is here to claim Earth, first as a preserve, then as a home. The planet has been cooking itself with chemicals and industry, heating up, and the Yautja like it hot. So yeah, I can just imagine these guys were bumping Nelly the whole way here. You know, with a little bit of and a little bit of And it goes on to say here, who better to lead the charge? To hunt the planet to extinction than the ultimate hunter, Craven. He had killed one of the deadliest predators of them all, a Yautja known as Skinner, and a hunting party had marked him as a sign of respect, as one of their own. And now as Craven approaches the throne of the Predator King, he's immediately struck down. And it goes on to say, for close to a year he had been living among them, studying their ways, teaching them Earth's ways, but he was still learning. And the reason why Craven was struck down here by a vibranium blast is because he's supposed to kneel when addressing the Predator King. And the person who struck Craven down is the King's strongest son, who we also saw in Predator vs. Black Panther. With it saying here, this was a son of the Predator King, who was known by a name that roughly translated to graveyard, and who armed and armored himself in Wakandan vibranium. And for the sake of the story, I may just continue to refer to him as Graveyard, but on the topic of these predators and all the vibranium that they have, back when we covered Predator vs. Black Panther, we learned in this universe the predators had visited Earth a number of times, with many of those visitations taking place in Wakanda. And in this world's history, this is something that led to Wakandans advancing their technology from things they had taken from the Yautja, as well as the Yautja discovering vibranium, which is what made the Predator King so powerful. And as we saw, he went on to share that power with his strongest son, Graveyard, by way of the vibranium spear. And I can only imagine at this point that the predators have way more vibranium, since so much was left in space towards the end of Predator vs. Black Panther. But coming back, we're told here Craven still had much to prove, and he would kneel when addressing their king. And when Craven speaks to the king here, I think this is going to be one of the most important parts of this story, even though it's just getting started. Because Craven says here, you requested a list, a kill list, so I give you this. A roster of all the greatest threats on Earth. We will need to work surgically, tracking down their strongest one by one, and then we can take our time with the rest. And now what's crazy about this is with Craven providing all this information about the Earth's greatest heroes and villains, this gives the predators a huge advantage. Because had they just arrived on Earth not knowing what they were up against, which is how so many predators in the past got wrecked, these guys would have eventually had been wrecked too. But with them going into this, prepared and knowing everyone's strengths and weaknesses, they now know who to go after first and how to take them down, as long as they can keep the element of surprise. And Craven goes on to say here, I have only one request. This trophy belongs to me, as he brings forth an image of Spider-Man, which was more or less expected. And it's not long after this where we get yet another example of how valuable Craven the Hunter is to the predators. Because next he says here, with that in mind, one of our principal targets is only a spear's throw away, which now takes us over to the blue area of the moon where the Fantastic Four currently are. And right now, as they're all kicking back and having some coffee, Reed tells Sue and the others that his doomsday algorithm's been triggered again. And Sue's like, yeah, well, it's also been triggered yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. And really this moment, or this whole conversation in itself, it just goes to show how easily the heroes can be desensitized from the concept of something or anything ending the world. And it's kind of crazy when Sue asks Reed here, how often is the world not in danger of being destroyed? And he tells her 2.73% of the time, but only if we're limiting the algorithm's parameters to imminent disasters. So it's like the world may not be cooked, but it stays preheated, so really it's just a matter of time. And I find it kind of funny here when Sue mentions to Reed that she has work to do, and you know, they all do, only for Reed to not pay it much of any mind. He just tells Johnny that his coffee is a smidge too cold, and he has him bump up the temperature to 150 degrees by just dipping his finger in there. And this has me thinking of a couple things, because for one, Reed is usually the person who it's nearly impossible to pull away from his work. So this version of Reed, who's basically just like whatever, he's probably the main reason why this whole world is doomed. And secondly, when he tells Johnny to dip his finger in his coffee to get it up to 150 degrees precisely, Sue's just like, that's disgusting. And Reed tells her not particularly. No matter where Johnny's finger has been, I assure you, the fire kills the germs. And I'm just like, man, I don't want to know where Johnny's fingers have been. He a wild boy. But lastly, just to get to know this version of the Fantastic Four a bit better, it's not like Sue is against them taking this time off. She's very much for it. And at one point, Reed even admits that it's difficult for him to experience deliberate leisure, which right there sounds more like the Sue and Reed of the main Marvel universe. But even with them having things to do after this, they just kind of push it off. Because Reed's like, oh, Ben needs more sugar in his coffee, let me take care of that. So again, it's almost like they've been desensitized from the importance of their work or taking these world-ending threats seriously. And they soon after regret it here when they're caught off guard by the world-ending threat making its way here to take these guys out. And now the team, they don't know what they're up against. But as we know, this is Craven and his hunting party. But I like how when they attack the Fantastic Four, we see Craven explain to the other hunters how to take them out. Because he says here, the Fantastic Four is a team especially dangerous to your goals. They are currently on the moon, yes. So they have the perspective to warn the world of our arrival. And they're extraordinarily dangerous. Reed Richards is the smartest man alive. Sue Storm might be one of the most powerful people on the planet, but it is more than that. They're a family. That probably won't translate. You likely don't understand what I mean when I say this. I have yet to see evidence of love among you, but it has something to do with intense cooperation and coordination. So we have to break them quickly before they can unite. And Sue Storm should be the primary target. Her invisibility is irrelevant, given your ability to pick up heat signatures, but her force fields will protect her. The Thing and the Human Torch are more accessories to Reed and Sue, directionless on their own, but formidable as a part of an arsenal. When you are a wolf hunting for elk, you startle the herd, and then you pick off your prey individually in the chaos that follows. And it's like now when we see Johnny coming at them, he suddenly has this vibranium rope thrown around his neck. As Craven goes on to say, separate them, divide them, figuratively and literally, as Johnny is hit with the finisher, with this predator yanking the rope and popping his head right off. And I gotta say how with this blue area of the moon, since the Kotati have placed so much plant life here, it's kind of made this place a perfect predator hunting ground, which once again just has me wishing that game had done better. So perhaps we could have got a Fantastic Four expansion. But after Johnny's killed, he literally goes up in flames. And when he does, it's absolute cinema. Because Craven's team, who's literally led by the Predator King's strongest son, Graveyard, they just come walking through this fire and it looks sick. And Craven goes on to say here, do not, under any circumstances, allow yourself into close quarter combat with the Thing. He's the very definition of brute force. You will lose. So Craven tells them here, keep him distant. And that's exactly what Graveyard does, with him using his vibranium weapons, not only to create space, but send the Thing flying out into it. And Craven even tells him here, like, you'll have to do without your trophy. I believe him to be nearly indestructible. Removal is the best strategy. So yeah, it's not looking good for old Ben. And back over with Reed, it's really not looking good for him. Because as Sue tries to get him to safety, he tells her, Sue, I've lost an estimated 2 liters of blood, so I'm going to lose consciousness in the next 10 seconds. So she tells him, stop talking, keep your strength. But he just says, no, this is important. Whoever they are, they didn't cut me with steel or even adamantium. They couldn't have. There had to be a powerful energy discharge accompanying the cut to disrupt the tensile strength of my skin on an atomic level. And after creating some space, Sue puts Reed down. And that's when he tells her that it had to be sophisticated tech bound together with vibranium. And it's like this whole time Sue's trying to talk to Reed and tell him to stay with her and remind him of what they talked about, of how important rest is. But at this point, Reed is no longer responsive. Alright, so coming back for issue 2 of Predator Kills the Marvel Universe. This continues the return of Craven, who left with the Yautja hunters back in Spider-Man vs. Predator after he was blooded and considered a worthy hunter. And since his return, he's been helping the Predator's body heroes left and right, like we saw with Star-Lord and the other Guardians of the Galaxy. And I mean, what seemed to be all of them except for Rocket. And after that, Craven led the Yautja hunters to the dark side of the moon, where they pulled off a very violent sneak attack on the Fantastic Four, leaving only Sue Richards as a survivor. And I mean, aside from her, you technically have Ben Grimm floating out there in space, but who knows what that's going to lead to, if anything. But now with Craven and these other Predators stationed on the dark side of the moon, as their advisor, he's preparing them to attack Earth. And as we're told, Craven speaks, and the Yautja listen, with him going on to say here, if you want the Earth, you need to think of it as the ultimate trophy, a skull you haven't yet stripped of flesh. By killing Reed Richards, you are stabbing its brain. By taking out the Thing, you are breaking a fang. And as he's saying this, he's leading a whole fleet of Predators down to Earth while flying the Guardian ship alongside one of the Predator's main hunters. Graveyard, who we were introduced to back in Predator vs. Black Panther. But Craven goes on here saying, by taking out the thing, you're breaking a fang, but you will have to move quietly and quickly before the rest of the animal registers the pain. Our only chance is a blitz, 1,000 cuts, coming all at once before the earth can turn its full gaze on us and mount a counterattack. And as they get closer, they split into two parties, with one following Craven and the other following Graveyard, which from here takes us over to the Xavier Institute in Westchester, New York, where we find Professor X and Magneto playing chess and having a conversation, or really more so a debate, with Magneto saying all of mankind is their enemy, and Charles is trying to tell him how mankind's not a monolith, because different people see things different, and there are mutants who hate humans too. And you know, I think we should see more of these mutants who hate humans. I really think we should see that more often. Because imagine a mutant just walking around saying things like, hey man, no homo sapien, I don't get down like that. Because I imagine that's how some of Magneto's acolytes were talking back in the day. But right in the middle of this debate, Charles grabs his head and he senses a pain so great that it just knocks him out of his chair. And you would think with Charles having a friend who's the master of magnetism, he could have stopped Charles from falling out of that chair that's mostly metal. But in this moment, this is Charles sensing the death of the Fantastic Four. And more so in the case of Sue, with him describing it to Eric saying something's wrong. I felt pain, the immeasurable pain of love lost. It was a cry for help, but it was a warning too. And he says, old friend, I am honestly terrified, as we now see Graveyard's ship hovering right above them. And before you know it, Magneto just gets pulled right through the roof. And it makes sense, because we're even told here that Magneto is up there at the top of the kill list. He's one of the people who Craven told the Predators like, hey, we gotta go for him first. Magneto's one of them, as he should be. Because Magneto could quickly stop any invasion, because to be honest, he could destroy their entire fleet with just a thought. So thanks to Craven, now that the Predators know this, not only was killing Magneto made a priority, but they also designed a custom weapon for him, an inversion magnet made from vibranium. And I'd even dare to say, because we've seen Magneto do some unconventional things with his powers over the years, but out there to say, had it not been for the element of surprise, otherwise he may have been able to adapt and get out of this. But because there was no warning, or at least no clear warning, Magneto was taken out before he could fully understand what was happening. And this was just Graveyard's team getting started, because now that they got Magneto and soon to be the Professor out of the way, a ton of them start dropping down into the mansion, including Graveyard himself. But before we see how that goes down, next we jump over to the Triskelion in New York, S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, where at this moment they flagged an alien vessel descending fast and heading in their direction, and they quickly identify it as the Milano, as Peter Quill and the Guardian's ship. But at first they're like all the Guardians, they never remember protocol, and as Craven gets closer, they request his vessel ID and flight path. And that's when the Predator who's with them uses the voice recording of Peter Quill. From issue 1, when they lured the Guardians into a trap, it uses the recording of Peter's voice, who was radioing in on a rescue mission to communicate with S.H.I.E.L.D., and they buy it. And I gotta say, hear me out. I gotta say, even with how messed up this actually is, it does make for a moment that has me like, hey, okay, now that's some good storytelling. Because if this was handled any other way right now, it would have been a missed opportunity. But I like this because they end up using everything Star-Lord said before he was killed, and the voice ID checks out. But S.H.I.E.L.D. does point out here that the radar doesn't match up with the Milano's specs. And mind you, there are also a ton of other Predator ships coming in too, because this is Craven's team here. But even with S.H.I.E.L.D. noticing how the radar doesn't match up with the Milano specs, they kind of just brush that off too. Because one of them's just like, oh, you know, that ship's been blown apart and patched together so many times, it's a wonder it's still flying. Let's get them out of this storm. And that's when they hear Quill's voice asking for permission to dock locally. So S.H.I.E.L.D. grants permission and they tell these guys to enjoy their stay in New York. And they're also like, don't get in too much trouble on this dark and stormy night, not knowing who and what all they just let in. I swear, if Nick Fury would have seen this, he'd be rolling his eye right now. But then it's here where we go back to the Weapons Plus facility in Virginia, where we find General Pet, who had been locked in a room with Predator X by Dr. Cornelius. And I'll be honest, when I saw this, I was like, I didn't think she was gonna make it to this issue. But come to find out, this was Dr. Cornelius showing her the proof of what he had been working on this whole time. And I mean, all the while showing her this proof much closer than she would have liked. But after some time, Dr. Cornelius tells Predator X that's enough, and he tells it to set her down. And right away, General Pet's like, you know, I can have you shot for this. Only for Dr. Cornelius to be like, but you won't, because what I have here is far too valuable to you. When she tells him to give her the short and dirty version of what she's looking at, he tells her, in a word, it's a predator, an alien species that we believe has been hunting on our planet for several centuries, at least. And thanks to my mind-wiping technology, this particular specimen now belongs to me. And I mean, it's like, regardless of how confident he is in his work, we know just based on Logan's past, there's a good chance this could go terribly wrong at some point. Or depending on whose perspective you're looking from, this could be something that turns out really good, because who knows, this guy could become a hero. And now back over at the Xavier Mansion, we jump over to the X-Men, who are in the danger room. Emphasis on danger, with them currently going through one of their Sentinel training programs. And of course they crush it here because they've only done it like a billion times. But as soon as they finish, Graveyard just starts walking up to them, with his team following closely behind. So Scott turns around and looks at Hank like, hey man, I thought this was supposed to be a Sentinel training program. And Hank is just like, how curious. Perhaps the lightning storm has surged our system. And it's like, to me, even if you're in the middle of a training program, you still see something out there, you still fighting. But instead Scott's just like, oh, okay, well, let's reboot. I want to make sure the team is, and then Graveyard just catches Scott off guard. Which again is these surprise attacks. It's like Invasion of the Sneak Hitters. But Craven and the Predators are not going to have this element of surprise forever. So they've got to make sure and spend it on the heavy hitters, which from here takes us over to Avengers Tower, where we find Captain America, Widow, and Hawkeye, who are all kind of just lounging for the most part, just as Cap sees the Guardian ship, the Milano, getting ready to land. So the three of them head outside to meet the Guardians, and Cap's just like, hey, what can I get for you ladies to drink? What you having, Quill? I'm just playing. But when they get out here and it's quiet, like real quiet, it's not long before Cap and Widow are like, wait, okay, something's not right. And they realize that this is actually a trap, which allows them to at least have a fighting chance here, as opposed to just getting caught by one of the Predators with a sneak hit. And while this is going on, inside the Avengers Tower, there's another high priority target, who we're told just might be at the very top of the list. And not just one of the targets at the top this time, but like the guy for the Yautja to look out for. With this person, of course, being none other than Bruce Banner, who in one of these images kind of looks like Christian Bale. See, now you can't unsee it. But while Bruce is here in his lab, he hears something, so he goes to check it out, only for him to head over to the lab entrance and find Captain America's shield just laying there, covered in blood, which right there lets us know that the fight up top didn't go so well. And just the very sight of this causes Bruce to Hulk out. And he was very much meant to approach the doorway and see this, because Craven staged this whole thing as bait. So now he's got to hightail it and lure the Hulk out, because his hunting party has one shot at getting this right, because if they don't, it's a wrap for them. Because let's be clear, if the Hulk were to catch Craven, it would be over for him immediately. Alright, so coming back, this continues from when we saw Craven hit Bruce with the ultimate rage bait. And Craven is well aware of the grave danger that he's in right now, so he makes sure to move it as fast as he possibly can, because he knows the Hulk ain't no slouch. And as this continues on what's literally been described as a dark and stormy night, we're given some narration here that tells us a bit more about Craven's motivations, with it saying the atmosphere shields us from space, roofs keep us dry, medicines fight disease, heroes protect the vulnerable, Earth believes itself to be a fortress, but Craven knows better. We're all closer than we'd like to think to the jaws of nature claiming us, even the Hulk. The best way to save her life is to keep company with death. And at this point, Craven looking over his shoulder like, man, the Hulk a little faster than I thought. Like he wasn't expecting Bruce Banner to turn into I Show speed. But this goes on to say, Craven is here to cure the world of its soft complacency. Anyone who wants to live like Vil will be slaughtered. Only those who fight back will earn the respect of a worthy death. And at this point, the Hulk just has a litter of those 3 red dots that you usually see before the Predator's plasma cannon goes off, because Craven has just led him into a room full of Predators, and all of them just let off their cannons on the Hulk at the same time. And those plasma shots basically do nothing. And that's where these Predators, they try to fight the Hulk, you know, hand-to-hand combat, as Craven continues to keep it moving. But the only problem with these Yautja hunters trying to do the whole hand-to-hand combat with the Hulk is the fact that the Hulk, well, his hands are different, because he's out here just tearing these guys apart, like literally. And I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, it's obvious to any person who has general knowledge of either the Hulk or Predators. I think anybody could tell you like what would happen in this matchup. But for me, there's something about seeing it and also knowing how capable the Yautja hunters are. Because when you think about how capable they are, only to see one get stomped into a puddle of juice and another one catch a backhand and just fly out the window, man, it's just kind of like, yeah, Predators are very much a threat when it comes to chasing down someone who's human-like. But against the Hulk, it's not even a contest. So after the Hulk quickly clears his room, he continues on his way to go after Craven. But for a moment here, we're shown a really brief flashback that tells us a bit about what happened after Spider-Man vs. Predator, when Craven traveled with the Yautja to their home world. With it saying here, Craven had never felt so at home than among the Yautja on their planet. They worshipped at the same altar of blood and sinew, go forth among the stars, and hunt the strongest prey. This was their shared doctrine. They taught him, and so he taught them in return. With their stores of vibranium, God metal. They had a worthy arsenal with which to launch their assault on the rich hunting preserve that is Earth, as we see the Yautja make a vibranium axe for Craven. And I will say, this quick flashback, it makes me think of that 2010 Predator movie, you know, the one with Adrian Brody. It makes me think of how I really wanted a sequel, and we never got it. And I mean, there was a comic that followed the events, but I also think a movie would have been nice. Just had to put that out there. But even now, with Craven on the move, this goes on to say, they had a strategy for every single name on the list, including the Hulk. Because now this is where Craven shows what he's really had planned this whole time, which as it turns out is a vibranium Hulk buster designed to drain the Hulk's gamma energy. And this almost makes it seem as if the whole plan of luring the Hulk into that room full of predators, like sure, in a way it allowed Craven to get a little bit more running room, but it almost seemed like a bit of a false positive. Like it was designed to make the Hulk think like, okay, that was it, as if that were the end game. So when the Hulk cleared that room and continued to chase Craven, he might have had his guard down a bit. That's just what I'm thinking. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. But this vibranium Hulk buster, it's very effective and it leaves Bruce exposed. And as Craven approaches, he tells him, "You remind me of the slow Loris Bruce Banner. It's a primate that looks gentle, but hidden inside, it is a toxic venom. You were the one I was most worried about." And right there, he just strikes Bruce down, killing him with the same vibranium axe we saw in the flashback. And now after this, when we head over to Logan, this has got to be one of the craziest moments in this story. And I think it only hits if you're familiar with the Predator versus Wolverine story, because after seeing what happened there and then coming back here, it hits different. And I'll tell you why, because when Logan smells smoke and he sees this fiery glow coming from the Xavier Institute, he races back just to see the place going up in flames with the body hanging upside down and on fire in the upstairs window. And with the front door wide open, we can see that there's one of the Predators looking outside at him. But the next thing that happens without warning is Charles Xavier getting pushed outside, and this dude is cooked. And now the reason why this is so crazy is because what happened here at the Xavier Institute about 30 some odd years ago. And I mean, that's just a rough guess as far as the time frame, because none of this is taking place in the main Marvel universe. But with this being Benjamin Percy's continuation of the Predator vs. Wolverine series, as well as the other Marvel Predator vs. series, in Predator vs. Wolverine issue 4, the Predator in that story, who Logan had been going back and forth with for years, he attacked the X-Mansion and nearly killed Charles in the process, only for Logan to save Charles just in the nick of time. And it was like back then and even now, we're told how the X-Mansion is like a home to Logan and how the X-Men have became like a family to him, which would then make Charles like a father figure, even though he's younger. But back then when Logan saved Charles, it was kind of like a moment where it's like, oh man, that was close. So in the present day, for Logan to come back, only to see that Charles is actually dead in the exact same place, front door at the X-Mansion, where Logan saved Charles from a Predator all those years ago. It's kind of crazy to see, especially with it lining up this way. And it even says here, if this mansion is what Logan might call home, then Charles is who he might call father. This isn't the kind of pain his healing factor can solve. So yeah, for me, it's Logan finding out about Charles' death in the same place that he'd saved him. It just has me like, man, Logan gotta be hurting right now. And that's not even where it stops, because just behind Charles coming out of the mansion, you got Graveyard leaping out and going after Wolverine. And we've seen what this guy's done with his crazy powerful vibranium staff. Like, he's cleared battlefields with it, so we know where this could go if he cranked things up. And now just going off this first hit, not only does it knock Logan all the way back, but it takes like half his face off. And even though his memory has holes in it, Logan remembers fighting this kind of enemy before. And it definitely wasn't this same Predator, but Logan remembers that he had many encounters over the course of his life where he fought something very similar, with his very last encounter being not that long ago. And just after Logan gets knocked back, Nightcrawler bamfs here. He grabs Logan and he gets them out of there quick. And now we're also told here Graveyard had studied the kill list carefully. Wolverine was more than a worthy opponent. He was a coveted adamantium trophy. So yeah, Graveyard definitely wanted this kill to show his father, show his clan, and really show that he's worthy of his place as the first Predator under his father, the Predator King. Speaking of whom, that's who we head over to now, with him currently being on his ship on the dark side of the moon. And because both his son, Graveyard, along with Craven, have seen success with their first wave, this is where the Predator King puts the next stage of their plan into motion, which from here involves sending out an insane amount of drones, both down to Earth and in Earth's orbit, with the intention of taking over satellites, space stations, power plants, data centers, dams, electrical stations, and launch docks, communication, infrastructure, defense, nuclear silos, because this isn't just about heroes and villains. They're taking the whole planet. And even speaking of the heroes and villains, the ones who we've seen get snuck up on, those attacks happen so quickly and so quietly in the scope of the larger picture that it's come to the point now where the Yautja, they're not even trying to sneak anymore. And because all those other heroes were taken out so quickly and so quietly, there are so many others who didn't know anything was wrong until now. And at this point, with the Predator King starting the next phase, this also sends out a message that's clearly telling the world, even the most powerful among you can't stop us. And it's not just Avengers Tower or Stark Tower. There are conspicuous attacks taking place all over because again, the Predator King is sending a message. And we're told here the king stands as Earth falls and his army follows. And as he steps away from his throne and his army follows, it goes on to say, but there is still hope in Wolverine, in Iron Man, in Spider-Man, in survivors the world over. There is still hope and strength. As we see Sue, one of the survivors, tiptoeing around the Predator King's ship. And for a moment here, she was invisible, but nah, I don't know if that's going to be too useful, you know, with the Predator seeing thermals and all. Alright, so coming back, this continues with the all-out Yautja invasion, where now the Yautja King believes that he's taken out the heavy hitters, whether hero or villain, according to Craven's list of most dangerous people. So now going forward, there's no more surprise attacks or stealthy maneuvers, because now they're going for the full-on invasion. And the first thing we see is Doctor Strange, Vulture, Green Goblin, Daredevil, and Elektra, all of them bodied. Kingpin's getting his back blown out through his chest. Doc Ock just got his arm cut off, so now he's got to change his name to Septavius. And just below them we have what looks to be Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, not sure. And as we're shown these different locations, we're told here, the rain has stopped, but the storm still rages. What's happening here is happening everywhere, an intense assault targeting power and infrastructure. The surprise might be over, but the hunt continues. And this is where we see the clouds swirl up with a streak of lightning shooting right through it, because now Thor's here. And he goes on to say news of the slaughter spreads beyond our realm. Even the gods have taken notice, but the Yautja came prepared, even for Thor. And in this moment we see Thor within the sights of one of these Yautja hunters. And when I tell you this particular Yautja, he's up here camping with a Punisher shirt on and a vibranium rifle. And so now going into this, we know Craven gave the Yautja their information on how to kill who or whatnot. And now I'm guessing when Frank met this Predator, he didn't make it. And for whatever reason, this dude was like, let me get that shirt though, the one with the trophy on the front. But it goes on to say here, the Yautja came prepared, even for Thor. Craven gave them the kill list and they designed their weapons accordingly. So now when it comes to killing Thor, when this Yautja squeezes the trigger, we're told here the vibranium bullet will pierce Thor's armor and skin, but that's not going to kill him. But what will kill him will be the power of the gravity well sleeved inside the munition, which from there just basically drags Thor down to the center of the earth. And now when I saw this, I was thinking like, man, even that shouldn't kill him. And the reason why, really the first thing that popped into my mind was this one issue and Thor was facing the lava men. And I don't remember what issue it was, but I'll find it and throw it up on the screen. But it's one of my favorite moments where Thor's just straight face walking through lava like it's nothing. And at the time he did mention something along the lines of Mjolnir being able to get him out. And it just had me thinking like, you know, based on the conditions of this vibranium gravity bullet, I can see a scenario where Thor would make it out of this. But again, all these issues that we're covering for Predator Kills the Marvel Universe as well as the tie-ins, these aren't the main Marvel Universe. So it's hard to say that any reference would hold up to prove that this Thor either would or wouldn't survive this. But just after Thor gets bodied, because the story said he didn't make it, but just after he's bodied, that same Predator comes down from the rooftop. Because on the ground where magma's just spewing out like a cut artery, this dude finds Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. And he's basically like, oh, like what could be a better trophy than the hammer of a god? So he goes to try and lift it. And I mean, of course he can't, like it doesn't budge. And the next thing he hears is someone behind him saying, "You think you're worthy?" Followed by a schnit and what I imagine is the lovely sound of adamantium claws cutting through a Yautja's back. Cause now Wolverine's here and he just tells his Predator, you ain't. You think you worthy? You ain't. But now keep in mind, this Wolverine is the same Wolverine that we followed throughout the Wolverine vs. Predator series, because all those stories from Benjamin Percy that we covered, they lead into Predator Kills the Marvel Universe. So when he pops up here with Nightcrawler, for Logan this is nothing new. And aside from that, like we saw in the last issue, he's coming from the X-Mansion, where it appears that Nightcrawler was the only one who made it out. So now the two of them are working together. So now Kurt asks Logan, like, what's the plan? And Logan basically tells him the plan is to kill every one of them as he kicks this Yautja down the hole. But before they can even head anywhere, they see a cop car race by with another Yautja hunter on top. So quickly Wolverine tells Nightcrawler, you know what to do, Elf. And I mean, these guys in the car, they're terrified, and the driver, he's done. But then this is where Nightcrawler bamps himself and Wolverine behind the Predator. And Wolverine's just like, hey, fishnet, surprise! Before opening this dude up and kicking him off the car, only to look back at Kurt with his face soaking in Yautja blood and tell him, or better yet ask him, find me another? Like, you can't tell me that Logan is not enjoying this at least a little bit. But then without notice, another Predator catches them with a net gun. And now the crazy thing about these nets is that they're metal and they're motorized. So once they've caught whoever they caught, that motor's gonna start going and that net's gonna get tighter and tighter. And now had this only been Logan, I could see him quickly cutting his way out of something like this, unlike his former Team X member who died in one of these. But with him and Nightcrawler in here, this thing starts getting real tight real fast. And even though Kurt is eventually able to bamf them out of it, there's a moment here where things were looking sketchy. And I don't care what nobody say, even with adamantium claws, once you net it up this tight, you have no leverage. Not to mention Logan would run the chance of stabbing Kurt. And speaking of Kurt, that poor fellow with his regular skull, he was in there like, my head. But once he bamfs the two of them out, Logan tells him they gotta get up because whoever shot that net, they're close. And that's where Logan picks up a scent here. And Kurt tells him that he doesn't see anything. Now this is one of those moments with Logan, he definitely knows better. So he tells Kurt, like, me neither, but that doesn't mean nobody's here. And this is a moment where Logan's like, wait a minute. So he spits out some blood, only for it to reveal that Graveyard's right in front of him. The same Predator who led the attack on the Xavier Institute. And now Graveyard, he wants Wolverine as a trophy really bad. And mainly because of Logan's adamantium, because it would be the rarest trophy any of the Yautja would have taken. And to go a step further than that, with Graveyard's father, the Yautja King, being the only other Yautja above Graveyard, and becoming the king by being the best hunter, which his father did years ago when he discovered vibranium. But for his son Graveyard here, if he were able to take an adamantium trophy, this could rival his father's achievements, like the vibranium spear or god metal spear that he was gifted from his father, which I believe is the same spear he's using now. But it's hard to say because after Craven linked up with the Yautja, they made all kinds of new vibranium weapons. But either way, Graveyard wants a significant trophy of his own, something insanely rare that he went out there and got. So in a way, Graveyard's trying to prove something by going for Wolverine specifically. And it gets to a point here where he stabs Logan with a spear and he lifts him up, only for Logan to get webbed up and yanked away by Spider-Man. And Logan still has the vibranium spear sticking through him this whole time. And man, Peter's over here like, woof. You might be 5 feet in chains, Wolverine, but that adamantium jelly roll of yours is something else. Peter like, man, bro, you mad dense. And he's like, seriously, did you eat a semi-truck for breakfast? Man, imagine Spider-Man swooping in to save you, only to roast you about your weight right after. Yo, if it's that serious, Spider-Man, just let me go, bruh. But with Spider-Man taking off with both Wolverine and Nightcrawler, Graveyard's like, nah, we ain't doing that. So he tags Spider-Man and now they all falling. And that's where Tony Stark comes in for the save. And he's just like, not so fast. I'm going to need all of you to stay alive a little longer. Which sounds like something you tell your teammate and rivals, but given the way things have been going for these guys and all the people who have been taking out heavy hitters, whether hero or villain, to me it sounds like Tony is so sincere right now. And I mean, perhaps Nightcrawler could have bamfed them out of there, but I'm sure his head still hurts from earlier. But now when Graveyard sees them getting away, he immediately reaches out to Craven. Because if you guys remember back in issue 1, when we saw Craven share his list of the quote-unquote greatest threats on Earth, and he told them who needed to be taken out first, Craven made the one request that they save Spider-Man for him, with that being his biggest trophy. And Graveyard honors that by reaching out to Craven to tell him that he's found Spider-Man. So immediately Craven jumps on it, he responds and he's like, where is he? But when he does, we see a video feed that's being picked up from one of the soldiers he's attacking. And the person who's watching, they say here, this video came from a soldier's helmet cam. On the one hand, not the best quality. On the other, it gives us a pretty clear picture of what's going on. The Predator invasion has been so successful because they had extensive intel at the ready. Craven the Hunter is their spearhead. And that's when we see the person who's saying this is General Pet, where they're showing this footage to Dr. Cornelius while telling him like, hey, Craven the Hunter is our primary target. Like, is that understood? And now General Pet, she's responsible for making sure that Dr. Cornelius had the funds for the program. So she's basically telling him who they need Predator X to go after. So when she asks him if it's understood, Dr. Cornelius tells her, oh yes, General Pet, I understand completely. And so does Predator X. And yeah, you can just tell this guy's about to get out there and be a problem. And when they send Predator X into the field, we're told that the military is going to continue their air and ground assault, but Predator X is going to move behind enemy lines and remain undetected among his own kind. And now for the rest of this series, I don't know how much we're going to see of Predator X or how big of a role he's going to play as the story comes to a close. But I will say with however that pans out, I'm hoping he's a part of this story that sticks around. because I want to see a lot more of this guy. But right after this, we head back to the dark side of the moon, to the Predator King's ship, which is also the Yautja base, in the heart of this invasion, where we find Sue Storm still sneaking around by going invisible here and there, and recently tiptoeing past the Predator King. But now she's made her way to finding the ship's core reactor, and when she does, she says here, "You killed Johnny, and you killed Ben. You killed my Reed, you killed my family, and now I'm going to kill yours." Because Sue's come to the point where she's lost everything, so now she's willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to take the rest of these Predators out. Because she even says here, this core reactor is capable of interstellar travel. Disrupting the fusion should result in a catastrophic release of energy, which will make for a hell of a bomb. But unfortunately, Sue is interrupted in the process by the Predator King himself. And you know, this is one of those moments where it's like, I hate that I was right about this, because in the last issue, I was like, come on now, the Predators see thermals, so Sue going invisible is not gonna help. And now here we are in the very next issue, where it's like the Predator King knew she was there the whole time. And we're also told here he wasn't chosen as king because of an election or his lineage. He was chosen because he was the greatest killer of them all. And now the Predator King had come for Sue Storm. And now following this, when we go to New York Harbor, we see T'Challa, Shuri, and Falcon making their way here. After surviving their own Predator attack in Wakanda, back in Predator vs. Black Panther, when we saw T'Challa go up against Graveyard's brother, who at the time made his way to Wakanda with the intention of taking all of their vibranium so he can enhance his clan and get revenge on his father and brother, since his father rejected him and his brother nearly killed him. But at the time, this also led to T'Challa learning about Wakanda's history of previous encounters with Predators and how their technology had advanced over the years by way of using left behind Yautja tech, which might come in handy once again now that T'Challa and Shuri are in New York. But as they get here, Sam Wilson's telling T'Challa, you know, thank you for coming, Black Panther. I know it's not exactly standard operating procedure for Wakanda to help beyond its borders, but the world sure needs you right now. So T'Challa tells him the Predators are using our vibranium as a weapon of mass destruction, Falcon. It is Wakanda's responsibility and our honor to put an end to this and to them. So yeah, just based on the fact that Wakanda and the Yautja have similar technology and how that worked against Wakanda before, I could see them using that as a weapon going forward. Alright, so as this story comes to a close, there are a lot of things happening heading into issue 5. Because now we have T'Challa, who's made his way to New York along with Shuri and Falcon following the events of Predator vs. Black Panther. We got Predator X, who's been deployed by Dr. Cornelius to go after Craven, which is a fight we'll see go down very soon. We have Sue Storm, who's currently on the dark side of the moon at the Yautja base, where she was recently caught by the Predator King trying to blow the whole thing up. And finally, back down in New York, we got Wolverine and Nightcrawler, who've joined in on the fight not long after the Predators attacked the Xavier Institute, which soon after led to them being joined by Spider-Man, who swooped in for the save when things got dicey, only for that to be followed by Iron Man saving the three of them when things got even dicier. So coming back, we pick up with Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. And right now it's just the three of these guys since Nightcrawler was banged up pretty bad in issue 4. But coming back and picking up with Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Wolverine, we find them at Stark Tower, making their way to sub-level 500, with Tony telling these guys this is where he keeps the dangerous stuff. And for a moment, Peter starts to ask Tony how he even has power during the blackout, but then he stops himself when he remembers who he's talking to, because he's like, never mind, that was a question from the 99%. But when they get down here, Tony tells them these Predators seem to like their toys. So do I. Suit up, gentlemen. I know you're both stupidly overpowered as it is, but we're facing an army that is stupidly overpowered. So go on and get a little iron in your diet. And I gotta say, it's always cool to see Iron Man's armor collection, with it including classics like your Armor 4, Model 51, Prime Armor, but I can't help feeling like this is a bit of a missed opportunity for Marvel to bring back the plastic ghost armor, which Tony used against T'Challa in Enemy of the State 2, because in a situation where you have an army of Predators who have equipped themselves with all sorts of vibranium weaponry, you would think this suit would be on the top of the callback list. And I get it, I know this story isn't taking place in the main 616 universe, but just by looking at the suits that this Tony has, you can tell there's a lot of experience and know-how that crosses over, which is what has me thinking of the plastic ghost armor, which at its core was a stealth suit, but it converted vibranium energy, and at one point Tony said it's powerful enough to bring Thor to his knees. So yeah, it makes me a little sad that they didn't bring it back, but nonetheless, this Tony still has something special for these guys. So after he gets them suited up, he tells them let's run through everything we know about these Predators. And from there he gives them the entire breakdown, with them saying they've got vibranium, so do we. Your suits are sourced from and powered by a payload one of my space mining crews discovered in a nearby system. And that's not something that's just coming out of nowhere, because we learned back in issue 1 that Tony already had mining crews out in space. And I mean, the ones we heard about at the time, those guys were already dead, but just seeing them let us know that Tony was sourcing out there. And some of what they were sourcing might have been the vibranium that was left in space after Predator vs. Black Panther, since the end of that story left a ton of vibranium just drifting out in space. So this may be some of that, might not be, not sure. But Tony continues here saying, they are hunters, so are we. And we know the mountains and valleys of this city better than they do. They like trophies. We're nice and shiny, so we make ourselves loud and visible. Then they'll come for us and leave the rest of the city alone. So that's what Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Wolverine do. They draw the attention of a ton of these predators to the point where they find themselves evading all kind of smart discs and shurikens. But a bunch of them take the bait and they come after these guys. And that's where Tony has them flip it, because he goes on to say, they rely on thermal vision. These suits have a cloaking mechanism if we need it. You simply lower your temperature to match the surrounding environment, and they won't know what hit them. As Tony just pops up on one of these guys and melts their face off. And of course, during this invasion and this all-out attack, we get one of those moments where the news reporter wants to get super close to report on the action, and it's to the point where she's even arguing with the cameraman. But while they're going back and forth, these three little dots show up on the side of the pilot's head, and the next thing you know is brain confetti everywhere. And as the chopper's going down, they're saved by Spider-Man. And this also acts as a bit of a reminder too, because we're told with Iron Man and Wolverine leaving a trail of bodies in their wake, we're told, or we're reminded, that Spider-Man's not a killer, but there are other ways he can help. So while Tony and Logan are taking the fight directly to this Yautja army, Peter's out here doing his best to minimize the civilian casualties. But in either case, the armor that Tony gave these guys is a huge help. But Wolverine's out here like, man, forget all that stealth. Like, why would I use that? Because at this point, since they all left Stark Tower, hours have passed. In that whole time, Wolverine's been cutting these dudes down left and right. Which really just goes to show how different the matchup is between these Predators and Wolverine, because now it's no longer the case of them just getting the drop on him. And aside from him now having all these years of experience and some decent armor, now his kill streak is going crazy. But this doesn't last for too long when Graveyard comes back. Because like we saw, Graveyard is the son of the Predator King, and he's had his eye on Wolverine for some time, because he believes Wolverine's death would earn him the ultimate trophy. So in this fight, only one of these guys are walking away. And also around this time, you have Black Panther and the others who finally reach land and join the fight. And when they do, we're also told here the Yautja would not have succeeded in their attack without three factors: the knowledge and strategy of Craven's kill list, the element of surprise, and their vibranium arsenal, God Metal. So knowledge, surprise, and vibranium. The Wakandans came to New York armed with the same. And when they get here, we're just shown like a glimpse of this. And it's really just set up to where it's like the same way the Predators came through with the element of surprise and vibranium. T'Challa's taking that strategy and using it on them. So now they have the same advantages that the Yautja army once had. And even though this moment goes by really quick, I do want to point out here, with T'Challa saying they came to Wakanda to steal our vibranium. Now they come to the world to colonize us all. Not in this life, Wakanda forever, Earth forever. And I mean, without context, it sounds kind of whack. And I mean, even with context, it still sounds a little But this is definitely a callback to Predator vs. Black Panther, where in this universe, Shuri and T'Challa had been going back and forth for a long time about Wakanda helping the outside world, and throughout that story he eventually came around to it, which is what led to them making their way here, but that's pretty much all it comes to. And I'm not saying that it necessarily needed more, but it just kind of feels like a yeah okay type of moment. But after this, when we go to Craven, as he's looking at the different trophies collected throughout this series, from Black Widow, Hawkeye, Hulk, Star-Lord, and many others. Even now, he's eager to add Spider-Man to his collection, because Craven told Graveyard and the others to save Spider-Man for him. But while he's here, we're told there was only one thing missing from Craven's trophy room: the torn and bloodied suit of Spider-Man. Craven had never felt more at home than with the hunters from the stars. They lived and died by the law of tooth and claw. They had seemingly accepted him as one of their own, but there was always a part of him that wondered if they were merely using him as they would use a blade or spear. And that's when one of the Yautja dropped down behind him, and it's not one of the friendlies, because it's Predator X. And as soon as this pops off, Craven holds his own for like 2 seconds. Because we're told here about Craven, he did not recognize Predator X, but he did not fear him either. All he wanted, besides Spider-Man's head on a pike, was the opportunity to prove he was the greatest hunter in the galaxy, or die a good death. And this was Predator X basically saying, I'm gonna give you option B. But right now, over on the dark side of the moon with Sue Storm, who was recently caught by the Predator King, because she was trying to sneak around while being invisible, while not knowing that they see thermal. And as it turns out, she's not the only one who's made a mistake here, because the Predator King did not study Craven's kill list. So he doesn't know that Craven had considered Sue Storm to be one of the most powerful targets. And it's an act of arrogance on his part, because after proving himself so long ago, all he does is send his troops out and they do all the work. So now he just believes that Sue's a nothing, a nobody. And Sue makes sure to make that his last mistake by creating a group of force fields inside of him. And you know, just making them larger and larger until they pushed his insides on the outside. And after doing this, she's like, that was for me. And right after that, she goes back to her plan from issue 4, which was to disrupt the fusion in the core reactor that the Yautja used for interstellar travel, which would then turn it into a bomb. And that's where she's like, this is for Johnny, Ben, and Reed, and the families who will still stand a chance. And that's the last thing we hear Sue say before she just sets it off, wrecking the moon itself in the process, which is definitely visible from Earth, so of course it's grabbing attention, but not that long because there's more immediate dangers. And as it turns out, that explosion caught Graveyard's attention for just a moment, just a half second, which is all Wolverine needed. So he makes sure his next slice is a good one, because he's ready to send Graveyard to the graveyard, literally. And from there, as Wolverine's going in, he tells Graveyard to take it off, to take his mask off. And Logan tells him, I want to look you in the eye when I kill you. I want us both to see pain. Because in this universe, Wolverine has had the most experience with predators over the decades. But after that recent attack at the X-Mansion, that hit him on a whole nother level. So he wants to return the painful favor. And while Logan's on the topic of seeing pain here, he makes sure that Graveyard sees it. In 8K, HDR, 1000 Hertz. Pun intended. Because it quickly turns into a bit of overkill with the way Logan just keeps going. And throughout this, we're told here, Wolverine's healing factor will mend his broken flesh, but not his heart. The loss of Xavier and the X-Men is a wound that will never scar over. The pain spills out of him and becomes an annihilating death. But eventually when Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Nightcrawler get there, Tony's like, I think you got him. And in what I imagine to be a tone where Tony's just trying to make sure that Logan's okay, he's then like, that was supposed to make you feel better, wasn't it? And Logan tells him it was, but it don't. So they all just kind of bring it in and let him know, like, this doesn't take away the pain, but we're here. Just before Tony shows them that Wakanda's made their way over to help as well. And now after this, we gotta go back to the Predator X situation for a moment. Because back over in Virginia at the Weapons Plus facility, we see Dr. Cornelius get confirmation on Predator X killing Craven. So he just tells General Pet, it's done. And she's the person who's been keeping the funding coming through for Weapons Plus, which is why she's often trying to call the shots. And when she hears this, she just tells him, good, I want Predator X decommissioned immediately. And Dr. Cornelius does not respond to that. So that's where she's like, do you hear me? And that's where he's basically like, look, mother, I heard you. Like, don't you see me using the iPad? But it's pretty clear that he does not want to shut down Predator X. Because the way he sees it, they're just getting started. And this continues with us being told, the long bloody night is over. Cities and heroes have fallen. The ground is stained with blood and the wind choked with ash. The grieving will begin soon, and then the reckoning and rebuilding. But a hunter remains among us, and his story is just beginning. And that's where we're told this is the end for now. So yeah, this concludes yet another Marvel Predator series. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would you like to see a Predator X story? And I'm talking about the Yautja Predator X, not the one from Uncanny X-Men or New X-Men. Though that would make a nice matchup if these two went head to head. But let me know what you guys think. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.